Hi, my name is Vladislav Vasil, and for my presentation today, I'll be talking about video games, the past, the present, and the future. Some of you might be able to relate to some of these images on the screen. A lot of us play video games on our phones. A lot of us used to play video games on the computer labs at school, and some of us even play video games on headsets that let us be fully immersed. So let's get into it. Usually when you think of video games, you think of the image on the left, kids sitting on a couch having a good time. But some of you might be familiar with the image on the right, which is people who get a little bit too into their video games and might even get aggressive. So are video games mindless fun, or can they be a dangerous conditioning device? For my presentation today, I'll talk about the origins of gaming, the present, the future of gaming, and the effect they have on children. At the end, we'll have a recap and I'll answer any questions you might have. What makes me credible to speak about this subject is that I grew up playing video games. I've been playing since I was 5 years old, and I still play video games almost every day. It's about 20 years of gaming. I also have a brief background in computer science, and I briefly worked as a software developer. So the history of gaming. Video gaming is a huge industry. It makes up a $100 billion industry, and it has very primitive origins. Video games started out on very basic computers and then progressed to arcades, consoles, cell phones, and now virtual reality headsets. Some of you might be familiar with the images on the right, especially the bottom right. Pac-Man is a very popular video game. So the early development of video games is much different than how video games are developed today. Today, video games are developed by artists, people who want to create video games, people whose sole purpose is to create video games. But back in the day, it was researchers and scientists who pioneered early video games, according to an article by History written in 2019. Steve Russell from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology created one of the first multiplayer video games called Space Wars. So now let's get into the introduction of consoles. Now, consoles are very popular. On the top right, we have the brown box. The brown box was basically, it was the first console that could be plugged into a TV and played, and this revolutionized gaming. As we know today, that's how basically all the consoles are, besides the handheld ones, such as the Xbox and the PlayStation. So it's all fun and games until someone gets hurt, right? Video games have been linked to violence. Some of you might be familiar with the image on the bottom right. This image is of the two Columbine school shooters. They were both known as avid gamers. According to an article by Carey in 2013, they both played a video game called Doom, which is a first-person shooter. The Aurora shooting in Colorado, which is a little more recent, was also committed by an avid gamer. On the bottom right, we can see that they're conducting drills for school shooting because the problem with violence has gotten so bad. Let's talk a little bit more about violence and gaming. So on the right, we have an image of a game called Mortal Kombat. Christopher Bartlett was a psychologist at Iowa State University. According to an article written by Carey in 2013 for the New York Times, he conducted some studies which showed a link between video games and aggression. He basically gave a bunch of kids hot sauce, had them play video games, and then told them to give the hot sauce to someone who would have to eat it no matter how much they gave him. Now, what they showed is that the group who played the video games versus the group who didn't play the video games was giving more hot sauce to the participant who had to drink it, basically proving that video games are linked to more aggressive behavior. So what does the future of gaming hold? Let's get into that. The future may be the past. Retro gaming has been making a huge comeback. Out of all the video game consoles sold, according to an article by Schmidt in 2018, 1 out of 5 of those consoles today is a retro console. Now, this could be a very good thing for violence and video games. Back then, video games were not as violent and hyper-realistic as they are today. They were more primitive video games, such as Pac-Man that you see on the top right, or even the old games that you used to play on your cell phone, such as Pong and Snake. So let's talk about the future of gaming. Gaming headsets such as the Oculus Rift, you can see in the top right, have been making very big appearances and changing the way that we view gaming. Apple, who makes most of our phones, is now making VR headsets, according to an article written by Garmin in 2021. So these VR headsets can do everything from play video games to even help you navigate. So basically, these VR headsets are a precursor to augmented reality sets, which will be something kind of like what Google tried to do with the Google glasses. It'll be something that you wear on your face and you'll be able to see your normal reality, but it'll have layers of technology over it that will help you do things such as navigate, tell the temperature, you name it. While this is a progressive step forward, it is also a step that further blurs the line between what's a game and what's a reality. And this could have a negative impact on aggression caused by video games. So to recap, we talked about the origins of gaming, which are very primitive, the violent effects they have, and how the future of gaming is moving more into a virtual reality thing. Now, is it family fun or is it a bad influence? That's for you to decide, but you might want to think twice before you buy your kid that first person shooter. Thanks for listening to my presentation. My name is Vladislav Vasil. Have a good night.